college football playoffs are in full swing right now, and they have been extremely fun, but not perfect. They are flawed. Some people think there are too many teams. I think it's the perfect amount of teams. Some people think the selection is terrible. It could use some work, but overall, I actually think they got the overall right group of teams in there. But the biggest flaws are the seeding and the matchups. So I have two ideas that either or could make the college football playoffs the best playoff system we have in all of sports. And if you put both of them together, it would be even better. But I think even just one of the two would be perfect. So here are my two ideas on how to fix the college playoffs. Now here's the thing. This is the first year of a 12-team playoff with automatic buys and bids. So maybe it was just a one-year weird flaw. So I wanted to go back and actually make sure this is going to be a problem going forward. So in 2021, the college football playoff rankings were, as you can see, these are the top 14 seeds. So we have Bama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Baylor, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Michigan State, Utah, Pitt, BYU, Oregon. So I kind of wanted to put these teams in our current playoff bracket with automatic buys from conference champions and then just filling out the rest of the bracket based on the rankings. Now, something I adjusted it a little bit was if there was still 5 power conferences, that actually would have made the playoffs much more. This college football playoff laid out better. Had it the 1 seed Bama, all of these teams like if they were in the current the 2 seed Michigan to have those top heavy conferences. Baylor would have been the Big 12 champion, even though they were the 7th seed, and then Cincinnati would have been the 3 seed, even though they were the 4th seed. Then you would have had Georgia, even though they're the 3rd team in the country, as the 5th seed, playing the 12th seed Pitt. You would have Ole Miss playing Oklahoma State. You had Notre Dame playing Utah, and Ohio State playing Michigan State. So overall, it actually didn't turn out too bad this year. Now you had Cincinnati, who was a 3 seed as a Group of 5 champion, but this is the year they went to the college football playoffs anyways, even though it was only the top 4 teams. So that's not terrible. And then you had Baylor, who was the 7th seed, go up to the 4th seed. That's not a massive jump. So overall, you do have some lopsidedness, like having to Georgia being the 5th seed, playing Pitt the 12th seed, then playing the Baylor. They probably still get the easiest path because Bama would have had to play Ole Miss, Oklahoma State. Michigan would have had to play Ohio State or Michigan State. So overall, I think Bama and Michigan got harder paths of schedule being bye seeds than Georgia did, which is a similar problem than we had this year. But overall, this year wasn't terrible. So moving on to the 2022 playoff rankings. We had 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 TCU, 4 Ohio State, 5 is Bama, I messed up the graphic, 6 Tennessee, 7 Clemson, 8 Utah, 9 Kansas State, 10 USC, 1 seed, you had the 11 first overall Georgia, 12 was Washington, 2 overall Michigan, 13 Florida State, good, 14 Oregon State. The 3 seed, look at how was that 7th ranked Clemson being the ACC champion. And then what people don't remember about the season is even though TCU was ranked 3rd and made it to a 4-team playoff, they lost their conference championship game to Kansas State. So Kansas State would have been the 4th seed, even though they're the 9th ranked team in the country. So then you have TCU as the 5th seed, playing the worst team in the bracket, Tulane, who again, I changed up the conferences to match this current year, so there's only 4 power conferences. So Tulane was that 5th highest ranked conference champion. So TCU has the easiest first round, but they're the 5th seed, so that makes sense. Then Tennessee plays Utah, Ohio State plays Penn State, Alabama plays USC. So in reality, I don't really see any major problems with the first round, except Clemson and Kansas State probably shouldn't be getting bye weeks. But then again, the problem is the second round. So TCU gets to play Kansas State. So even though they lost to Kansas State, and it's definitely not an easy matchup for them, they get the lowest ranked team out of the whole second round, even though they're the 5th seed. First seed Georgia has to play either Tennessee or Utah. No easy matchups there. But second seed Michigan probably has to play 5th seed Alabama. So Michigan's getting punished as the second seed, while TCU and Kansas State are getting rewarded. So again, major flaws. So then 2023, we had 1 seed Michigan, 2 seed Washington, 3 seed Texas, 4 seed Bama, 5th seed Florida State, 6 seed Georgia, 7 Ohio State, 8 Oregon, 9 Missouri, 10 Penn State, 11 Ole Miss, 12 Oklahoma, 13 LSU, 14 Arizona. So this year, there was major problems because again, Michigan and Washington are now in the same conference. Texas, Alabama. 1 seed Michigan as the 1 seed. So the 4 seed, top 4 seeds. Second overall between Washington though is the 5th seed. Kind of a similar problem to Texas, the SEC champion. So let's look at how it looks on a bracket. And then 4th seed or 4th overall Bama is the 6th seed. And then you had Florida State as the ACC champion in the 3 seed. And then Arizona, who even though they didn't win the Big 12 championship game, because again, Texas was in that conference at the time, I just made them the Big 12 champion because they were the highest ranked Big 12 team there. Let's see if we have the same problem again. The 5th seed plays the weakest team in the first round. Makes sense. But then they play the weakest team by far in the second round because Arizona should be nowhere near a 4th seed. Michigan, the 1 seed, has to play either Ohio State, their biggest rival, or Oregon. And again, those are 2 teams that a 1 seed should be able to beat an 8 or 9 seed, but compared to the difficulty that Washington has, that's unfair. Texas, as a 2 seed, probably has to play Georgia next, and then Florida State plays Bama next probably. So I just kind of wanted to run through the past couple years to see if there actually was a problem with the bracket and how the seeding works. I am personally all in for automatic bids from conference champions. But with them having automatic buys, it puts too many teams that are at bottom tier down into bye seeds, and then it gives teams like the 5th seed too much of an advantage compared to a 1 seed or a 2 seed. So the first idea to fix the college football playoffs is something that probably almost everyone. This is how the bracket should. Let's just seed them based on what they deserve to be seeded as. 1 Oregon. Again, I want Georgia teams to get automatic 4 bids, but they should get as in where they deserve to be. We either play Indiana or Boise State this next round. Well, you can make an argument those are the two of the worst 3 to 4 teams in the first round or in the whole playoffs. Makes sense. Georgia as the 2nd seed gets Tennessee or SMU. Makes sense. Texas gets Ohio State or Arizona State. So Ohio State's definitely up a much harder opponent than SMU or Tennessee. Makes sense that Texas should have to play them as a 3 seed. And then Penn State, the 4th seed, would play the 5th seed Notre Dame or Clemson. And if we're being subjective, Notre Dame is probably an easier opponent than Ohio State. But Notre Dame had the better regular season, so they're ranked higher. But as you can see, it just aligns it so the 1 seed actually gets benefit of being the 1 seed, and the 5th seed doesn't get benefit, or the 4th or 3rd seed doesn't get benefit. So we should just seed them based on rankings, keep the automatic bids, and the playoffs would be so much more smooth. here is my second idea on how to make the college
Oregon the
football
1 seed,
playoffs
Georgia
the
the
most
2
exciting
seed,
playoff
Boise State
system
the
in
3
all
seed,
sports.
Arizona State the 4.
So as you
Yeah,
can
Texas
see,
at 5 versus
here
Clemson
is
at
the
12.
current
Ohio State
college
8
football
versus Tennessee at
playoff
9.
Notre Dame the 7 versus Indiana the 10, Penn State the 6 versus SMU the 11. Now for this scenario I'm going to present to you, we'll just keep the current seeding system just to make it easier. So we're not changing too many different parts. But again, I think they should adapt what I just talked about along with this. So I heard this idea a couple years ago related to the NBA. And the idea is the higher ranked team should be able to pick who their opponent is out of the lower ranked teams. So I'm going to give you an example and why I think this would be so good. When doing this, ESPN will have their announcement of all the top seeds. They'll be like, Oregon's the 1 seed, talk about it. Georgia's the 2 seed, talk about it. They'll go all the way down to 8. And they'll be like, these are our top 8 seeds who the top 4 have byes and the next 4 have our home teams. Then they'll announce seeds 9 through 12. And you don't really have to go into depth, but you don't go into depth about matchups. You just announce them. Then they're going to be like, so the first 4 teams don't pick opponent yet because it's their bye week. So then they're like, Texas as the 5th seed, they don't think they deserve to be the 9th seed. So then, Texas section wouldn't say they want their opponent. The narratives are coming out of round 1. Oh, and Indiana, let's just say Texas schedule, Indiana as a team that got smacked. Curt Cignetti's overrated coach. All these players are just transfers. And Indiana's going to go down to Austin with a real chip on their shoulder, thinking Texas doesn't think we deserve to be here. Then, after Texas picks Indiana, Penn State's up, and let's say they pick SMU. Kind of the same story. They didn't beat anyone good. They're in a weaker conference. We're not afraid of their run game. We don't think they can play in the cold. We want SMU to come on down. Again, these players will take this very personal. These guys are very prideful, so are the coaches. They just put up an amazing season, and now Penn State's calling them out, saying we don't even think they're in the same league as us. And then Notre Dame says Clemson's easily worse than Tennessee. The ACC is nothing compared to the SEC. We're not afraid of them. They got to come down to the cold also. Notre Dame picks Clemson. They're not worried about Dabo Swinney having experience. This Clemson team has been overrated all year. And then Ohio State will just get Tennessee. So it's only a little bit different of a bracket, but just the narratives of these top teams picking who their opponent is causes so much acute drama and almost some acute rivalries too. And I think that would spark a lot of controversy, a lot of shit talking. If one of these upsets happened, they're like, they picked us and look what happened. I think it would cause so much fun in college football. Oregon would, let's just say the top seed in each bracket won. So Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame. In the next round, the top 4 seeds out of those would again they want pick their opponent. So then, for example, they pick Penn State. We beat them once, we'll beat them again. It'll be a neutral field. We've seen everything they got. They haven't seen everything we got. We don't think James Franklin can win big games. So we want Penn State to come on down. Then Georgia picks Notre Dame. They say Notre Dame hasn't beaten anyone good. They think they're overrated. They don't think they can handle their big SEC powerhouse of a team. Then Boise's stuck between Texas and Ohio State. Maybe they saw how Georgia ran on Texas. They picked them. I'm not saying this is how it would go, but you get the idea, right? And then Arizona State would be left with Ohio State. And after this, if you want to even pick again one more time, go for it. But I think going through this, as you could see, it would create so many interesting storylines, so many just spiteful rivalries, shit talking between the players and the coaches and the fan bases. It would create animosity in a world where transfer portals are changing how actually intense rivalries are. It'll always stay. Ohio State and Michigan will always hate each other, even if players are transferring in and out every year. But this would just create extra tension in these games that truly matter. So like I said, the college football playoffs are already so much fun. All the storylines leading up to it. The first round, even though they're all blowouts, were still enjoyable to watch the home crowds. I'm looking forward to the second and continuing rounds. But if you could do the reseeding so that the top seeds get more benefit, because I would say Penn State as the 7th seed has a better path than Oregon, the 1 seed, which makes no sense. That would be one more fair. So you got to get rid of automatic buys, keep the automatic bids, because I do think it's better for this sport. But if you could just add in a structure where the top teams pick their opponents out of the lesser grouped teams, so many fans, coaches, players would take it personally. It would create so many good storylines, so many interesting talking points, and it would just make the games have an intensity to them that I think we can still get, but this would guarantee it. So those are my ideas for the college football playoffs. Let me know what you think.